Hi everyone, and welcome to today's video where we're going to be doing a guide for Norway for EU4 1.34 Lions of the North. So Norway is a nation located in the region of Scandinavia. We start off as a junior partner of Denmark, a lesser partner in the Kalmar Union, in which Denmark rules over Norway, Sweden, and also Holstein as a vassal. With the release of EU4 1.34 Lions of the North, Norway has gotten significantly buffed in its national ideas that focus mainly on colonization and naval and trade stuff, and with the addition of this awesome mission tree, we can get free from Denmark very easily, a lot easier than in the previous updates, and our mission tree will help us colonize North America and further, get free from Denmark, maybe even PU them, and conquer all of Scandinavia and go on to form the now very powerful nation of Scandinavia. Norway is pretty poor at the start, and even though getting free from Denmark is gonna be easier, it is still gonna be pretty hard to get rich, get our army large enough, get our fleet large enough to go and do some actual conquests. But by using this guide, you will have a super easy and super fun campaign, and you can learn what you need to do as Norway in EU4 1.34. And before we begin, if you enjoyed this video, don't hesitate to leave a like, it really helps out a lot. And boys, I'm trying to hit 100k subs, so consider subscribing. Maybe with your support, we can do it. Let's take a look at what we need to do as Norway. Alright, here we are as Norway, and like I said, we do start off as a junior partner of Denmark along with Sweden. You guys know that Sweden is pretty rebellious at the start, but we don't have any liberty desire. We're also not making money at the start. In fact, we're losing money, so we're gonna have to deal with that as well. But the first thing we want to do in our game here is kickstart our mission tree by doing these two missions right here. Norwegian allies, where we need to get at least 2 out of Denmark's rivals or enemies to like us or have a more than 100 opinion of us, and this mission requires us to have a general and increase our army to 100% of our force limit. Now, when you start the game, go and check who Denmark's rivals and enemies are, and if England is here, you're all set. Poland is pretty good as well, so you're going to want to start improving relations with the 3 most powerful nations that you're gonna see either up here or up here. In my case, that's Novgorod, England, and Poland. So immediately send all 3 of those diplomats to improve relations. In my case, England would support me right away, so I am gonna do that just like that, and now I'm gonna improve with Poland and Novgorod as well. Next, we're gonna wanna go in and deal with the estates, and Norway already starts off with 2 unique privileges granted to the nobles. The Danish nobility, basically this means that, well, the Danes rule our lands, and nobles court right here, which is also related to the same thing. We can't revoke them right away because the nobles are more influential than they are loyal. So we'll be dealing with these whenever we can. So the first thing you're going to want to do is summon the Diet and try to do an agenda either for the nobles or for the burghers. For the nobles, so we can get them more loyal than influential, and for the burghers, because this mission requires us to complete 2 agendas for them. These missions aren't that important, so you can deal with these however you want. I suggest doing something for the nobles. My agenda here is for Poland to have 100 opinion of me, so I'll take it. Next, we're going to give the clergy religious state and religious diplomats. We're only going to give the nobles primacy of the nobility, and then we're going to seize land and give the burghers patronage of the arts and indebted to the burghers. We'll deal with other privileges later. Next, it's time to deal with the mission Expand the Military. And for that, we are going to take our army here and delete the 2 cavalry regiments. They're way too expensive for now. These 2 cost us about a ducat, and instead we're going to hire the Free Company. This will take us 1 over force limit, but it's not a problem. And the next thing we want to do is deal with this mission right here, the Fleet of Norway, which will give us an explorer with 100 tradition and 10 navy tradition by building 2 more heavies and 4 more lights. So just build 2 more heavies wherever and build 4 more lights once again wherever. It'll take us over force limit, but it's not a problem. At this point, you can also hire an Improve Relations or Diplorep guy, a level 1 if you have him. I have this Improve Relations guy, so I am gonna hire him. Now you can lower army maintenance and turn off your forts and wait to get 100 opinion with all 3 of Denmark's rivals that you've chosen. If Sweden offers you an alliance, basically that means that they're rebellious as well. And we can see right here that both of us are rebellious. Now, it's totally up to you whether you want to ally Sweden and get their help in fighting Denmark, or if you want to reject that alliance offer and fight them along with Denmark. It's totally up to you. Maybe if you're a newer player, you're gonna want to get Sweden as well. So for the purposes of this guide, I am gonna ally Sweden. But even if you do, right after your first war, you're probably gonna break your alliance with them. It's totally up to you what you do. It will be slightly easier if you get Sweden with you as well. Once your army is built up, you should hire a general as well. And once you do, you will be able to take the mission Expand the Military, where basically you gain 50 mil power, basically a general for free, and some morale and shock damage received modifiers. And apologies for misreading this mission right here, but we actually don't need to have both heavy ships and light ships. So scratch that, don't build any heavy ships, just the 4 lights is gonna be enough to take the fleet of Norway. You're gonna want to save this mission until you're done with the war with Denmark though. Don't get the Explorer just yet. And once you're about to get 100 opinion with the second Danish rival, you're gonna want to bump up army maintenance and activate forts and take both of your armies right here. And you should dock all your navies in Trondelag up here because we don't want Denmark to beat them up. If you've got England supporting you, they should come and beat up the Danish navy. The AI does know how to naval invade in 1.34, so England is a very good nation you can get to support you. Now, if you've completed a nobles agenda right at the start, like I have, basically getting 100 opinion with Poland, you may be able to revoke one of the 2 super powerful privileges that the nobles start with. Of course, you are going to want to stab up for these. So what I recommend doing, if you've completed a nobles agenda and if loyalty is higher than influence, is actually stabbing up, just like this, and then being able to revoke one of these privileges. I recommend revoking Danish nobility first. We will lose stab and 10 nobles will rise up in a certain province, but do revoke one of these if you can. If not, you're just gonna do it later, whenever you have more loyalty than influence. And if you did that, just go and deal with the nobles before we get ready to declare on Denmark. And when you have 2 nations with more than 100 opinion of you, it is time to take this mission right here, Norwegian allies, and this event happens. Basically, this first option right here asks them to support us and we gain some mill power. Right here they send us manpower. Over here they send us money. Right here we don't get anything from them, instead we gain some nice modifiers, but if we have allies we don't have those modifiers. So for this 4th option right here, it needs to be only you. No Sweden, no England, no Poland, no one. And then the final option, we lose Liberty Desire. If you want to fight Denmark by yourself, then choose the 4th option, otherwise choose this first option right here. As we can see here, Novgorod has chosen to support me, Poland has chosen to support me, but England refuses because, well, they already support us. So it's all good. And once you're ready, go ahead and declare on Denmark. Sure, you can wait for Sweden to do it as well, but then you won't be the war leader, so I do recommend declaring on Denmark yourself. Independence, they shouldn't have any strong allies, and here's everyone that will support me. You can beat Denmark by yourself, or just with Sweden, or just with England, or something like that, but the more allies you have, the easier it'll be. So go ahead and declare. Boom, we're gonna lose some stab, but that's not a problem at all. And when this war starts, make sure to send your free company down to this fort right here and tell people to attach, and then split your main army into 3 and try and siege these provinces down before Sweden does. You might be able to do it, you might not, but try and get as many of these as possible. At this point, you can fire your Diplo guy, look for a stab cost guy, just like this, and stab up, and then you can get a mill guy as well. I'm gonna get this discipline guy, try and get a morale or a discipline guy, and then when you can, fire the stab cost guy if you have him. Now it's just a simple independence war, which should be super easy, especially if you've gotten all of these guys to support you. But like I said, this is way overkill, and you totally don't need most of these guys. Alternatively, you could not stab up and simply take this mission right here, which gives us stab, legitimacy, and permaclaims on these areas right here. There's a couple of events where Norway gains forts. I got the event where I gain a fort here already, but that one you can't choose. However, in this other event, you can choose to get a fort up here. So do whatever you want. I recommend getting a fort because why not? And there we go. Once you get the fort events, you will also be able to take the mission Forts of the North, which you should do because why not? And once you beat up Norway, your war is pretty much done, no matter how you did it or with who you did it. If you're a more experienced player, you did it by yourself, but then again, you probably don't even need a guide since these guides are meant for newish players anyway. So when piecing out Denmark, here's what you're gonna do. Of course, we're gonna go ahead and take independence because basically that's what we're fighting the war for, and go ahead and get every province over here in this area, in the area of Scania, that you've occupied yourself. Sweden may have occupied some of them, but if you were quick enough, you would have managed to grab at least one. In my case, I got all 4. And if you haven't gotten any, don't worry, you can just get something over here maybe, or not get anything at all. So demand independence and get whichever of these provinces that you can. Sweden will probably get angry if you have them on your side, and if you don't have them on your side, you may consider taking some of these provinces as well. Of course, I'm allied, so I'm not gonna do that. So I'm gonna grant independence, get these provinces, and I'm also gonna get war reps. No money because we probably won't get most of those anyway. And that's our first war with Denmark done. Now we're independent and we may own some provinces over here. Now immediately after this war is done, if you have Novgorod supporting you, you're gonna want to dissolve that alliance immediately because we don't want to fight Muscovy. And if you've allied Sweden as well, you're gonna want to dissolve the alliance with them too because we're gonna want to fight them as well. And this is what my alliance network looks like right now. I've got England and Poland. Poland has Lithuania and Mazovia and Moldavia. This is pretty standard. You can try and find some other allies as well. But now that this war is done, you will be able to take the mission Win Our Independence, a very powerful mission. This mission gives us permaclaims on the lowlands and highlands and the Isles, basically the entirety of Scotland, permaclaims on the entire region of Scandinavia, which is this right here, and most importantly, a restoration of Union CB on Denmark. Now, you may want to PU Denmark. It's honestly up to you. You'll get claims on their lands either way. But because this is sort of a unique thing you can do as Norway, I do recommend PUing them. Even though it might not be the most optimal, it definitely has the most flavor. So, if you care about PUing Denmark, don't take this mission just yet, because the CB is only for 20 years. However, if you don't want to PU Denmark, if you just want to conquer their land, you can take it right away since you're gonna have permaclaims anyway. For the purposes of this guide, I will be PUing them, but it's totally up to you what you do. They're not even that big. You can easily conquer them in 2 or 3 wars. So I am gonna save this mission. But once the war is done, you can take this mission, where we gain an explorer, some navy tradition, and this event. And basically, we'll discover the North Atlantic region and Greenland and gain even more navy tradition. And once you have that explorer, you can totally take your fleet right here, pull out 3 light ships from it, just like that, and put the explorer in charge and tell him to explore. We are gonna want to colonize at least a little bit. Our missions and national ideas do tell us to do so. But right now it's time to chill, wait for the truce with Denmark and Sweden to expire, or maybe, if Scotland isn't guaranteed or allied to France, they are in my case, you could pounce on them if they're not. Either way, whatever you do, it's time to focus on the economy and chill a bit for the next few years. Now that the war is done, I have rivaled Sweden, Scotland, and Denmark. You will have similar allies. Of course, if you're role-playing or something, you could stay buddy-buddy with Sweden. At this point, you're gonna want to improve relations with outraged countries, and I'm improving with Austria and the Pope as well because they're pretty important nations and I do want them to like me. Now that this war is done, you can also give the clergy Clerical Advisory Council, the burghers Land of Commerce, and Commercial Advisory Board as well. We're not gonna give anything else to the nobles until we revoke Nobles Court right here. Once again, I'm gonna try and do a nobility privilege just so I can revoke this agenda as well. So I need to improve with the Teutons here, and that's what I'm gonna do. Like I said, try and do nobles agendas. And sure, if you have 4 forts, it might be a little overkill, but we'll be getting rid of them later when we fight Sweden. And with that awesome explorer, we know about the North American coast as soon as 1453 in my case. If you're faster, you can probably discover this by 1450. Once you've embraced Tech 4 in all categories, I do recommend activating Encourage Development in your capital state of this, and deving Oslo up to at least 30. This will not only help us with the age objective, but it'll also speed up the spawning of the Renaissance a little bit. After a couple of years have passed and your truce with Sweden has expired, it may be time for you to declare your second war, which is probably gonna be versus Sweden. Now, of course, this is gonna depend on how strong they are, how strong you are, what alliances they have, if any of your allies would help you out, but this is a possible second war. So if Sweden is too powerful for you, or you don't feel like you can beat them, don't worry about it, we're gonna deal with them later. And instead, if you can't declare on Sweden, you're just gonna wait for your truce with Denmark to expire, and your second war is gonna be against Denmark once again. In my case right here, Sweden doesn't seem too powerful. They're only allied to Mecklenburg because Muscovy invaded Novgorod, and actually my allies wouldn't help me, but I feel like I can take them on because Mecklenburg wouldn't help them either. So if you can, get ready to fight Sweden. You can take this mission before this war too to gain further claims on these areas, or once again, you could save it and wait for your truce with Denmark to expire if you want to PU Denmark. In your first war with Sweden, you're going to focus on not only taking some stuff over here or wherever you have claims on, but most importantly, we're going to want to take provinces over here to prevent Muscovy from pushing into them. For your tier 2 government reform, it's once again not as simple just like with Denmark. Now here's what I recommend. If you've removed all 2 of the super strong nobility privileges, basically the Danish court and the nobles court, then you can take strengthen noble privileges for manpower. We will need that manpower. However, if you haven't revoked those 2 strong privileges, if you have both of them or just one, then I recommend taking compromise with the nobility. This will give us minus 10% stab discount, but more importantly, increased levies will no longer increase their influence. So by taking compromise with the nobility, we can take increased levies and gain all that awesome manpower based on the nobles' land ownership while not giving them any more influence. So if we remove those 2, strengthen noble privileges. If you didn't, compromise with the nobility. I'm gonna compromise with the nobility. And if you have taken this, then you can go ahead and give out increased levies. Now that my forts are up and my army is ready, I will be declaring war on Sweden. First, I'm gonna activate the defensive edicts in some of the more important forts just like this to prevent Sweden from sieging them down quickly, because they have quite a few forts as well. And I'm simply gonna go ahead and declare on Sweden for the conquest of Elfsborg. You can beat them by yourself if it's 1v1. However, if they have a strong-ish ally, you may not be able to do this right now. And like I said, you'll just wait for the truce with Denmark to expire. Since you've been deving and stuff like that in your capital, you may not be at Miltech 5 yet, and Sweden might be. In my case, we're both at Tech 4, but be careful not to engage their armies if they're at Tech 5, because they'll crush you. And once you've beaten up Sweden sufficiently, we're gonna take what I said earlier. Basically, these provinces right here, so we can prevent Muscovy from pushing into them. You can also take this province over here to connect your lands if you've taken anything else down here, and then just go ahead and take whatever other provinces you want that you have claims on. Basically, I'm going to be taking these provinces right here, and that's about enough for now because we will be fighting Denmark pretty soon and we don't want too much aggressive expansion. This is the most important thing. Anything else, take as much as you're comfortable with. I'm also going to get war reps and money, and that's my first war with Sweden done. Like I said, if you couldn't do this, you're just waiting for your truce with Denmark to expire. When you get enough money to select your naval doctrine, we do have a unique one, Norwegian Sailors, that gives us plus 25% Marines force limit and plus 1 fleet movement speed. If you're interested in playing with Marines or anything like that, then go with this. Otherwise, I suggest you take shipboarding for chance to capture enemy ships plus 33%. Or you could go with Free Horsemen for galley combat ability in the early game, at least until you beat these guys up in the Baltic Sea. So I'll be taking this for now, even though I actually don't have any galleys right now, but later in the game, I'll be swapping to shipboarding. Also, now that I've taken care of Sweden, I will be getting rid of this fort right here and this fort right here. When you get the strategic marriage event, don't choose to end the conflict and get friendly with Scotland. Instead, choose this option right here where you're gonna get claims on them. Of course, we do get claims on those things from our missions either way, but still, don't be friendly with Scotland. Alternatively, you could actually get friendly with Scotland if they're allied to France, because you see, if they're allied to France and not guaranteed with them, you can try and ally them as well, curry favors with them, make them break their alliance with France, and then you can break your alliance too and then go ahead and fight them. In my case, I haven't invaded here yet because they're guaranteed by France. However, if you have an opportunity at any point in the early game to invade Scotland, then you should do it. If you still border Novgorod at this point, meaning if Muscovy hasn't eaten them up completely, I do recommend spying on Novgorod a bit and trying to get as much as you can from them. And once your truce with Denmark has expired, it is time for us to declare our second war against them. By this point, they still won't have any strong allies. In 99% of my trial runs, they never got any strong allies during this point. So, even if you fought Sweden or if you didn't, it's time for our second war against Denmark, or maybe your third war overall. Once you're ready to declare, only then will you take this mission, win our independence, and we gain perma claims on all of the things listed here, legitimacy, and a restoration of Union CB on Denmark. Now, it might not be the most optimal to PU Denmark, but I do think it's the most flavorful based on the following missions right here, where we can get some nice events. However, I do need to revoke the other privilege for this to happen as well. So, when you're ready to declare, either declare with the Restoration of Union CB or with a conquest, depending on whatever you want. I do recommend the Restoration of Union, like I said, and make sure to call in your boys so they can help you cross. It is important that you get England in this war if you can, since you will need their navy. I just can't in my case, so I'm just gonna declare with Poland and Lubeck. Once you reach Admin Tech 5, you will be able to take your first idea group, and even though we are going to be going colonial as Norway, I don't think it's really necessary to lean super heavily into it by going exploration expansion. We can already recruit explorers and conquistadors from this idea right here, and we already have a colonist from this second one right here. So, If you want to go heavy into colonization, I do recommend opening up with exploration and expansion. However, what I recommend slightly more is going for something that's going to help increase our income and our army quality and quantity as well. So what I recommend for your first idea group is basically quantity or quality. We do lack both manpower increases and army quality in our national ideas, so either of these two would be great openers. Personally, I'm gonna open up with quantity, but you can go with either of these two. We are gonna need to take both of them for this run though. Of course, you're gonna wanna focus on whichever idea group you took. It's mill for me. For your first age ability, you're gonna wanna take higher developed colonies for +1 tax production and manpower when a colony is finished. And when your war with Denmark is done, here's what you're gonna do. It did take me quite a while to be able to get to Copenhagen thanks to Lubeck. Without Lubeck, I don't think I would have actually been able to cross, so that's why I said it's important to try and get England in this war so you can have an easier time sieging down Copenhagen. Otherwise, you're just gonna have to wait for their boats to get tired and maybe leave or catch their navy split so you can beat them up. But like I said, if you declare with conquest, you're gonna take their lands, but what I recommend for the flavor is simply getting them as a junior partner and taking all of their money. And that's your second war with Denmark done. They will be a bit rowdy after this, they won't like you that much, but you can go ahead and pay off their debt or something like that and improve relations or maybe even support loyalists to get them loyal. After you've PU'd Denmark, it's time to chill for about 2 or 3 years and try and look for next expansion opportunities. You're either going to want to push into Scotland, which has blown up in my case, so I might push into Leinster here, or you could try and go for Novgorod if they still exist. That's your 2 most likely options, or you could also check to see what Sweden is doing if you haven't fought them yet. So one of those 3 wars is your next war. Once you take the first idea, your colonial range will also increase, in which case you should explore some more. Now that I've chilled for a little bit, I'm going to be declaring my next war. It's going to be versus Novgorod. I already said the 3 opportunities you're going to have, so go for whatever is easiest for you out of Scotland, Sweden, and Novgorod. But I'm going to go for Novgorod because their truce with Muscovy is pretty close to expiring. Once again, we're going to do the classic fighting Novgorod strategy as a Scandinavian nation of taking border provinces to prevent Muscovy from pushing into them further, while also taking as much as we can. They're only allied to Ryazan, so this is not going to be an issue at all. And I've gotten pretty lucky here in my campaign that Muscovy haven't taken the 2 most important provinces, so that's great for me. And now that I have enough war score to peace out Novgorod, I will do so. Like I said, if they're pretty big, you're going to want to do something like this to prevent Muscovy from pushing into them. However, if you can full annex them. I'm just going to leave them alive in this one province right here, since I don't want to have any disconnected land. And that's a little something what your war with Novgorod should look like. It doesn't matter if you do it now or later, or if you already did it. To prevent low religious unity, what I recommend doing with these lands right here in the White Sea and Novgorod trade node that are at least in the Eastern Europe super region, I recommend trade companying them, at least for now, for the early game, until we gain some modifiers when the Reformation spawns, so we can convert them. But of course, you could keep them as trade companies for the rest of the game. So just click on the trade node and add these provinces to trade companies so you don't suffer any religious disunity penalties. It'll go up to 100 as soon as the month refreshes. For your tier 3 government reform, if you've already revoked both of the starting nobility privileges, you can go with centralized monarchical bureaucracy, you already know what it does, or expanded royal court right here for +1 possible advisors and plus 20% reform progress growth, or even royal favoritism for cost of advisors with ruler culture. The problem with these 3 reforms right here is that they all mess with the loyalty or influence of the estates. This one right here gives us -5% loyalty equilibrium. This right here gives us +5% influence. And this right here is good because it gives us -5% influence, but then again, we can't call the diet to get more loyalty by completing agendas. So if you're too scared about not being able to remove those privileges, you should go with one of the other 3 that don't give us any penalties to estates. However, they're not as strong as these other 3. Personally, I don't think I'm gonna have a problem revoking this later, so I'm just gonna go with centralized monarchical bureaucracy. Now that I've dealt with all the rebels and cleared up all the provinces I took from Novgorod, I'm gonna be taking this opportunity to expand in Scotland, because Leinster right here isn't allied to anyone, and that's a perfect opportunity. Like I said, your expansion in Great Britain and Ireland is only a possible war that you might do. It's totally not necessary to expand here, but keep an eye out for things like this. So I'm just gonna declare on these guys right here. I do have a subjugation CB from the missions right here, but still, I'm gonna be full annexing them, so I'll just declare a regular conquest. And now that my war with Leinster is done, I will be full annexing them and expanding over in the British Isles and Ireland. Once you elect 6 ideas, you will unlock your second national idea where you gain +1 colonist, and you can simply go into the economic map modes and click colonial to see your colonial range, basically where you can colonize, and you should be able to colonize some things over in North America. And with this 1 colonist, we're gonna start creating colonial nations. You can go hands-on, basically take an army over there, fight the natives. You can go with the native repression policy, go ahead and colonize faster, or you can be hands-off and choose native coexistence and not interfere too much in those colonial affairs. It's totally up to you. I like being hands-off, so I'm gonna go with native coexistence right here, although this one is obviously the best and the quickest one. And then you can go into the geographical map modes, select colonial and trade regions, and see in which regions a colonial nation will form. What I recommend doing right here is colonizing in the colonial Eastern America region first, letting a colonial nation form there, basically colonizing 5 provinces. Then you can move to Canada, to the Caribbean, maybe to Louisiana, and once you have about 4 or 5 colonial nations in North America, you can start pushing down the coast of Africa. 2 very good provinces, Massachusetts and Manhattan, already have natives in them, so I'll be sending my colonist to Chesapeake. And something completely unrelated to the guide, but for the second guide in a row, after France got coalition last time, this time Austria is not having a very good time because they have a massive coalition against them. Now, I just completed an estate agenda and got some nobles loyalty, and they're finally once again more loyal than they are influential. At this point, I can remove the nobles court, which is the second privilege that I have left over from the start. Of course, I am going to need stability for this, so I am just going to go ahead and stab up once and then remove this privilege. We got nobles in a very unlucky place in Sutherland, but I'm just going to go ahead and deal with them. And by around this point, it's not unusual to have both privileges revoked. A lot of you will probably have done this way sooner than I have, and a lot of you will do it a bit later. It doesn't matter how long you have them around, just make sure to remove them whenever you can. And once you do that, you will be able to take the mission Expel Danish Nobility. This is a super powerful mission. We gain 10 legitimacy, -2 national unrest, and +1 legitimacy per year, but most importantly, we can enact the Norwegian monarchy tier 1 government reform. And this is a very nice mission. It's a very unique way to play Norway. I know some don't like the parliament, but why not lean into the flavor that has been provided to us and take this mission right here and see what it does. And just like that, we're no longer a regular feudal nobility, and instead we're a Norwegian monarchy. This is sort of similar to the British monarchy, and we get -1 national unrest, +1 yearly legitimacy, -30 max absolutism, and -10 nobility influence, which is pretty nice. Of course, now we also have a parliament, and for those of you that haven't played with a parliament, well, first we're gonna have to give out some seats, and you do that by just clicking on a province, and then this right here, it doesn't matter which province you give the seats to, or maybe it does. Maybe you should give seats to the provinces with the highest dev. I'm not exactly sure how it works. And once you've given out seats to all the necessary provinces, you can go ahead and start a debate and get one of these bonuses. Let's see what I have right here. And for example, monthly autonomy changes, definitely something that I would like. Then you can go ahead and bribe all of these provinces so they can accept what you're pushing for. So I'm just gonna give these guys military support. I am gonna ignore corruption. I am gonna give diplomatic support, and I'm gonna grant navy commissions. And now we have monthly autonomy change for the next 10 years. That's pretty much how a parliament works. Once the debate is over, you can start a new one. And once you PU Denmark, and it is important that you PU them for this event to happen, if you just conquer them, this event can't happen. So you do need to PU them. That's also why I recommended it. And once you expel the Danish nobility, you will be able to take the mission Norway-Denmark, and the event The Crown of Denmark happens, and we no longer need Admin Tech 20 to form Scandinavia. Let's see what that event does. And this is the Crown of Denmark event. Basically, Denmark lose -50% liberty desire, so that's good if they're rebellious, but they shouldn't be either way. And we gain the modifier Successor of the Kalmar Union until the end of the game, giving us -15% advisor cost, which is super strong, +1 possible advisors, and +10% nobility influence, which are basically similar to the modifiers that the Kalmar Union government reform gets. We also gain a restoration of Union CB on Sweden. So that is super nice. Now by this point, you may have fought Sweden earlier and dismantled them a little bit, or you may have not. It doesn't matter too much how big they are, but now we do have that restoration of Union CB on them, and once again, it's totally up to you if you want to PU them and keep them around, or if you just want to conquer their land. Sure, it is more optimal to conquer them because you don't really get anything out of your junior partners, but for the flavor, I recommend PUing them and becoming the Kalmar Union yourself. Unfortunately, after PUing Sweden, we don't get the Kalmar Union or the Unified Kalmar Monarchy government reform, which I do think would have been a nice addition for Norway, but it's still a very nice mission tree so far. For your second idea group, no matter if you opened up with quantity or quality, I do recommend economic. Trade would be pretty good too, but we are going to get a bunch of merchants from the trade companies that we're going to establish in Africa and from the colonial nations as well, so economic for your second idea group. And after you've unlocked this mission right here and gotten the event that gives us a restoration of Union CB on Sweden, it's time to declare on them whenever you're ready. By this point of the game, you should look a little something like this. Maybe you haven't expanded in Scotland though, but you should have done everything else over here that I've done as well. And when you're ready, just simply go ahead and declare on them with Restoration of Union or with Conquest if you don't want to PU them. And of course, if they have strong allies, if you're not ready to declare on them yet, don't worry about it. Do it at your own pace. I'm going to call in Brandenburg and go and PU them. I don't know how often I say this in guides, but when you get the Radical Reforms event where you have a yearly inflation reduction guy and a trade efficiency guy, you can of course get this option right here for 200 Diplo and admin points. What you want to do before taking this option is fire both of these guys, then take the points, and then just rehire them again. I'm just gonna separate piece sap me right here because they exist and it's just one province, and I'm gonna full annex them because why not? And now that I'm done with Sweden, I'll simply enforce my union over them. It won't be a lot of AE, even if you haven't shrunken them down a bit like I have, and I'm gonna take all their money. Like I said, if you don't want to do this, you can just conquer the provinces, but I do like PUing them for flavor and for us to become the actual Kalmar Union leader instead of Denmark. And that might be your first, second, or even third war with Sweden done. After you've done with this stuff, you can focus on completing the mission Restore the Infrastructure, where you need to get all of the provinces in these 3 areas right here up to at least 8 dev. Once you complete the mission Restore the Infrastructure, you will be able to take it, and this event happens. If iron or copper is discovered in any of those provinces, we can basically bump them up and stuff like that. And I actually just got an event like that, copper found at Oplanda, and that is, let's see which province, it's this one right here, and basically we can have copper produced there or bump it up in production. Of course, copper is a lot better than naval supplies, so definitely always take iron and copper whenever you get these events. 450 versus 2 ducats, I think the answer is obvious. And by around the 1490s, your game should look a little something like this. Basically, we start off as Norway, and with the addition of the brand new mission tree, and maybe with the help of Sweden, we were able to break free from Denmark very easily, a lot easier than previous patches, I do have to say. And in that first war, we got independence and maybe some provinces over here. After that, if you got Sweden to help you, they would be independent as well, where you could have fought Sweden and taken the border provinces with Novgorod most importantly, and maybe something else if they didn't have any strong allies. Or alternatively, you could have waited for your truce with Denmark to expire and declared your second war against them, where you either took provinces from them or PU'd them, and like I said, I do recommend PUing them. Later, while we were waiting to get the mission to get the restoration of Union CB on Sweden, you should have fought Novgorod and taken border provinces from them that they border with Muscovy, or full annex them depending on which is possible, and you may have expanded a little bit over in Scotland depending on if Scotland was allied or guaranteed by France, or if not, maybe you had an opportunity to push in here, maybe you didn't. And by this point, you should have also kickstarted your colonization game, whether through exploration, expansion, and your national ideas, or like me, with just your national ideas. Of course, it is going to be slower like this, but I'm not too heavy into the colonization game, so that's why I went quantity economic or maybe quality economic instead of exploration expansion. But both of those strategies are valid. You can go exploration expansion or quantity/quality, and economic, it's totally up to you. If you want exploration expansion, then you should go quantity or quality and then economic next. However, if you're not taking exploration expansion, after taking quantity or quality, I recommend taking the other one for the third idea group, and for your fourth idea group, I recommend diplomatic, influence, or admin. It's totally up to you which of those 3 you take. The rest of them are up to you. By this point, even though we're a very powerful nation, as we can see right here, I am number 8 on the Great Powers list. I have PU'd Sweden, I have PU'd Denmark. You should have done the same, and you should look similar to me, at least in the area of Scandinavia, maybe not in the British Isles, but you should be a pretty powerful nation, have a pretty sizable army, a very nice navy, but you might still be struggling with cash just like I am. Norway isn't a very rich country at the start of the game. You're not gonna get rich very quick right here. We're not really present in the Lubeck trade node and in the Baltic Sea unless you've conquered them, of course, instead of PUing these guys. So if you have these as junior partners, you're not gonna be that that rich. If you conquer these provinces, your economy will be booming by this point. And like I said, for the colonization game, make sure to form some colonial nations here and there before moving on to Africa and then maybe India and the East Indies. It's totally up to you how much you want to colonize. Maybe you don't want to colonize at all, even though we do have a very nice mission tree branch down here that tells us where to colonize. After this point, you're going to continue to expand in the same directions you've already been expanding in. If you've PU'd these boys, then that's great. If you're conquering them, then continue to conquer them. And later, when you get strong enough, you can start heavily pushing into Great Britain and Ireland. You can get Poland and Lithuania to help you fight Muscovy, or you can get Muscovy to help you fight Poland and Lithuania. You are going to want to focus on the Baltic Sea trade node, the Lubeck trade node, and the Novgorod trade node as well. And basically, you'll be expanding over here in Northern Europe, focusing on these trade nodes up here and focusing on routing trade from the New World over to the North Sea and then Lubeck. And eventually you're going to want to move your main trade node to the English Channel if you do manage to conquer a sizable enough portion. And of course, later you are going to want to form the nation of Scandinavia. It is good now. I do recommend forming it. You can annex Sweden, you can annex Denmark, or you could just conquer them. It's totally up to you. When the Protestant Reformation comes around, I do recommend going Protestant as Norway. As pretty much any Northern European nation, you're going to want to go Protestant. So far, we're about 50 years into the game, and I've only taken one papal privilege. I can't really get that good of relations with the Pope, even though I can actually ally them now, but don't stay Catholic. Just go Protestant as these guys. It's much better. By this point, of course, we haven't only been expanding and we haven't only been PUing, guys. Even though we are sort of strapped for cash, whenever you can, try to build a building here or there. Maybe every time you take out burger loans, build 1 or 2 buildings. By this point, this is what I've done myself. I've got marketplaces in most of the center of trade provinces, and I've got production buildings in most of the high value trade good provinces. We are going to be strapped for cash, at least in the early game, so this is not a very, very high priority. For your tier 4 government reform, I recommend taking curtail clerical privileges. For tier 5, I recommend dynastic administration or meritocratic recruitment. For tier 6, I recommend royal decree. For tier 7, I recommend this, which I'm not going to try and pronounce, or embrace the economic theory. For tier 8, 2 treaties of the government is pretty nice since we do have a parliament. For tier 9, I recommend l'état c'est moi, and for tier 10, I recommend political absolutism. And like I said, by around the 1490s, your realm should look a little something like this. Let me know in the comments below what's the next nation that I should do a guide on. If you want to watch me do stuff like this live, you can follow me on twitch.tv/TheRedHawkLive, and if you want to catch up on stuff from over there, you can subscribe to the second channel, link is in the description. If you enjoyed this video, don't hesitate to leave a like. It really helps out a lot. And if you want to see more guys like this or more EU4 videos in general, definitely hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on anything. And you can become a member today and join the Discord. The link is in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time with another EU4 video.